Good evening and welcome to Alan's Italy. Tonight's show is the first in a two-part series that I'll be having on the Jewish experience in Italy, starting first with Florence and then moving on to Venice. The two shows will actually have two parts. One will be a little story of how the idea came to me and the steps I took in organizing the all the material. And the second part will be a series of interviews that Laura and I did with some of the key people in the Florence Synagogue and in the Venice Jewish ghetto. So let's go right to that because I do have a lot to do tonight. And this first frame actually, this first frame actually discusses the two shows. So number 68, which is tonight, will be Florence, and number 69 next week will be Venice. And tonight we start with number 68, and what you're looking at now is the incredibly beautiful synagogue in Florence. And this story actually begins in the town of Pitigliano. And Pitigliano is a really beautiful town in southern Tuscany. And what happened was, in the year 2010, I was planning a trip for Laura and me and also our two friends, Randy and David. And I was doing my usual research into many of the places I wanted to visit. And we knew we wanted to spend time in southern Tuscany. So I was just kind of looking at all the places that are there and that we haven't seen yet. And I came upon the town of Pitigliano. And as you could see, Pitigliano is a really, really beautiful town. And we decided we wanted to go there, and we wanted to, during that time, visit with our friends Rick and Sharon. And this is the picture that we took with Rick and Sharon. And there's me and Laura and Randy and David. And this is us having lunch in Pitigliano. And when I told Rick the idea, Rick said, yes, that's a very good place to visit. In addition to being a beautiful town, it also has one of the oldest Jewish ghettos in Europe. So that would be a very interesting thing to do. And we indeed began to walk down the back streets of Pitigliano on a really beautiful day, and the weather was stunning, and the streets, as you could see, the back streets of Pitigliano were very beautiful. And we went into this section of the town, and in this section of the town was located the synagogue, and this is what it looked like. It's small, but this is the original synagogue that was there from hundreds of years ago, and you wouldn't even know that it really was a synagogue in the obscure way in which it kind of blended into the scenery of Pitigliano, which we'll talk a little bit more about later on. The second part of the story comes from Rome, when Laura and I went to Rome in the year 2012, and we were walking around the town. One of our goals was to visit the Jewish ghetto, where I had never been, despite the fact that I had been to Rome maybe 12 or 13 times. And we went to this area, and there is the kosher restaurant. And this, of course, is the magnificent Synagogue of Rome, which, although we took pictures of the outside, we could not really get into the synagogue because it was closed. But, this is as far as we got. Then I was doing a show on Florence, and it actually was show number 24, Florence Then and Now. And one of the things I was doing on that show was looking at some of the 19th century photographs of Florence, one of which was not that picture, that's the current view, but this view. This was the view of the Piazza della Repubblica before it was completely refurbished in the late 1800s. And this was called the Mercato Vecchio, and I came upon this photo. It's a very poor photo because it was taken probably around 1860, one of the first photos taken of Florence by the Alinari brothers. And this is a photograph of the Jewish ghetto in the middle of the 19th century. And I began to really study this and go back and look at the Mercato Vecchio and the current view of the Piazza della Repubblica. And then what happened to the piazza after it was completely refurbished in honor of the fact that Florence had become the capital of Italy. And I sent an email to the synagogue in Florence asking them the question that after the synagogue, the ghetto was kind of closed down around 1870, what happened to the Jewish population? Did it resettle in the current location of the synagogue? And that series of emails led to a number of conversations I then had with the director of the Florence Jewish community. And first I'd like to show you where the Florence synagogue is located. And you'll see a black dot right over here. And that's where the synagogue is located. And of course, this you might recognize because I did so many shows of Florence, is a map of central Florence. There's the train station up here on the left side, and there's the cathedral over here, and the Palazzo Vecchio, and the Uffizi, and so on. And the synagogue is right over there, a little out of the way of the center of town. And we had set up an appointment with several of the people at the Florence Synagogue to bring our cameras inside their facility, which you're not allowed to bring any material of that sort into the synagogue, not a camera. You have to empty your pockets before you get in, and there's indeed an armed guard there, just kind of as a preventative. So, we got special permission to bring our cameras in, our video cameras and our, for still pictures as well. And we began to walk in that direction. Of course, here we are in Florence, and it's unmistakable when you stand at the top of the Piazzale Michelangelo, which is to the south of Florence. You've seen this picture many, many times. And there is the cathedral, the dome of the cathedral, off to the left. And there is the Church of Santa Croce, right in the center. And that little green dome over there on the right side is the synagogue. And that was our goal, walking down the side streets of Florence. And this is a close-up of it. And as you could see, it is truly one of the most magnificent buildings in all of Florence. And that was our goal, to get to that point. And, I was looking at this picture this morning, could not take my eyes off its incredible beauty. But we were walking along the streets, and this is off-center. This is not in the section of Florence where there are a lot of tourists. So as you could see, the area is kind of devoid of tourists, and it's kind of a quiet area. We're now kind of walking towards the synagogue in that spot that I showed you. There is never a lacking in the number of Vespas, of course, as you could see along the streets, but we eventually did get to the area around the synagogue, and there is a very well-known kosher restaurant, as you could see there, and the name of the restaurant is Ruth's Kosher Vegetarian Food, and there's the menu with blintzes and some of the recognizable items you could get, but also a few more esoteric items. And it's called the menu is kind of marred by the fact that there's that time when it's open and closed over there on the left side. But we eventually wound up, of course, at the synagogue, and we told the guard that we were there to see the director of the synagogue, Emanuela Viterbo. And this is a picture of the director. He's actually known in Florence as the secretary of the Jewish community, but his real title is, according to what he explained to me, was director of the Florence Synagogue. And this is a picture of him beginning his tour of the outside of the synagogue with me right over there on the right. And behind me was our cousin Barbara, who had accompanied us on this particular excursion. And he showed us some of the grounds of the synagogue, which are absolutely magnificent. And this is actually the ruins of some parts of the synagogue that were blown up by the Nazis when they were escaping from Florence. They had set dynamite in certain parts of the synagogue, and this is the damage that was done. And this is a placard that kind of explains that between the night of August 3rd and 4th, 1944, as the Nazis were abandoning the city, their last terrible act was to blow up the city's bridges, except for the Ponte Vecchio, and also to set off an explosive charge in the synagogue. And we'll talk about that a little more later. This is a very moving thing. This is a memorial to the 248 citizens of Florence who were taken by the Nazis and did not return to Florence after the war and were killed in concentration camps. And what makes this unbelievably moving is the fact that if you look very closely, you'll see that there are many names that are the same. And these are, just entire families, sometimes as many as a dozen or 14 or 15 names. And, it's obviously very moving to see something like that. This is another memorial to the people who gave their lives during World War I. And this is a very, very beautiful view of the synagogue as we were entering it. And this is a view of the inside of the synagogue. We'll get some much better photos of it as we move along, and I'll explain what the 3 videos are going to be in just a moment. But this is the fellow that I had the appointment with. This is Emanuela Viterbo, who his official title is Secretary of the Jewish Community of Florence, who is a very wonderful man. This is Sara Cividalli, who is the president of the Jewish community. And the interview started out with Emanuela, and Sara joined us shortly afterwards. And then we were also joined by Mr. Renzo Funaro, who is the architect in charge of restoring the damaged elements of the synagogue from not only the war, after the war, but also during the floods of 1966 and several other projects that he's doing. He will also join us and give us his expertise as well. Now, there are 3 videos. There's a video that is the longest, which will be over 20 minutes, and that's with that begins with Emanuela and continues with Sara and Renzo. And then there's a video where Emanuela starts describing some of the elements of the synagogue. And during this time, Laura gets the opportunity to take some stunning videos of the inside of the synagogue. And then Mr. Funaro explains some of the elements of the Jewish Museum upstairs to us. So those are the 3, and I'm going to play one after another. And then afterwards, we'll kind of tie it together with additional photos that we have. So if you're ready, Ellen, here we go. Okay, we are privileged today to be hosted by the director of the Florence Synagogue, Mr. Emanuela Viterbo.
Yes,
thank you very much for the privilege of giving us your time today. We appreciate that very much.
Welcome to Florence.
Thank you very much. So we have a few questions we'd like to ask you. And first of all, come in, Sarah.
The president of the Jewish Community of Florence.
Sarah is the president of the...
Change your hat.
Let me do this, because I'd rather do this than this. This is much more comfortable. Sara
Cividalli
is the president of the Jewish congregation here. And I'd like to thank you as well for taking time to visit with us. And the first question I'd like to ask you is, your name is Emanuela Viterbo.
Yes.
Is your family from Viterbo?
I don't think so. Maybe, but you have to know that the second name of the Jew in Italy, a lot of them belong to a name of the city. Maybe because they pass from the city when they move, maybe from Rome to the part of Italy, and there are a lot of Jewish family with the name of city, Synagogue.
No, Cividalli.
Cividalli, is that the name?
Maybe it's from Cividale or Friuli, or maybe it's
Right, I
from
see.
Civitas Iulia, and so from
Yes.
Rome.
Okay.
From
Now, how long have you lived in Florence?
I born in Florence,
You're born in Florence.
and also my parents are born in Florence. My father, my mother, and also my grandfather, my grandmother. I have only one grandmother that she born in Rhodos, when Rhodos was Italy, and because my grandfather went there for to make some work in it was ecologic.
he studies Etrusci. It's the
Okay,
ancient population of Italy.
Yes,
Etruscan.
Yes,
Etruscan history.
Yes,
Before
so he
Romans.
went to make a tour
Yes,
in
yes,
Rhodos,
yes.
and he
Yes.
find his wife.
Uh-huh.
But so my family are from
And how long have you been director of the synagogue?
25 years.
I see. So did you go to school? Did you go to school?
I born here, and when I was a child, I went to the kindergarten of the Jewish school here, and after there was the elementary school first, and then the high school until 13 years, until Bar Mitzvah. I studied here every day in the daily school of the Jewish community, and so we have to learn also Hebrew, Jewish culture, and now the school is not anymore. There's only a school for kindergarten from 1 year until 6, and then we have a Talmud Torah to prepare to Bar Mitzvah, but it's not only on Sunday and Wednesday afternoon. They came here, so.
So how could you tell us how big the congregation is in Florence?
How is the congregation?
900 people.
900
people.
people, and it's a very, it's not an homogeneous congregation. We have people of every kind of people. We are we are a Orthodox congregation, but people are not all Orthodox, and a good number of children who are attending school or Talmud Torah, and then young people, and a lot of old people.
Is this the only synagogue in Florence?
Here in Florence.
It is. And do the members of the congregation live in this particular area or all
No.
over Florence?
One time, so when they decided to build this synagogue in this part of the city, was only country part of the city was, and so more than 1 century ago,
People
built a house also nearby the synagogue. So,
Yes.
so one time, a lot of members of the congregation live nearby, but now they live all around. And this is now inside the center of the city. We can arrive here anymore with a car, and so here now the building is more expensive, and so
Yes.
the people live.
There are a lot of people who live nearby.
Yes,
Our
also.
family.
Would you say that the
Really?
people who live nearby
Yes,
are more
because-
Orthodox because they can't
yes,
drive?
and also because our house belongs to our family that
Oh, I see.
are here.
I
So,
see.
yes.
So can you, what portion of the Jewish population are part of the congregation?
The majority.
The
Yes.
majority of
Yes.
Jewish people are part of the congregation. That's very interesting. Now, can you tell us a little bit about the history of the Jews in Florence? How far back do they go? And I remember that I read that the original Jewish population was centered in the current location of the Piazza della Repubblica in the old Mercato.
Yeah, so you have to understand that when there was Leopoldo de' Medici, the Jewish have to run away from Spain in 1492, here there was the possibility to live in Tuscany in well, and Leopoldo asked the Jewish population to arrive here to increase the commerce. And so they arrived in most the part in Livorno. Then they moved also in Florence, and so this is the start of the Jewish Community of Florence. Of course, there was just here some Jewish family, because the Jews arrived also in Italy with Tito, that bring Jewish from Rome,
From Israel.
from Israel.
Ancient Rome.
Yes, and so, when there was built the ghetto was where is now Republic Square, just near the Duomo and Palazzo Vecchio. And inside the ghetto there was more synagogue of different Italian, Minang, Levantina, but also first of this synagogue there was also in Florence another synagogue near Ponte Vecchio. In the other part of the river there was but now there's nothing anymore.
I see.
After, when the ghetto was open, was built another synagogue just out of the ghetto in Via delle Oche that was
60.
yes, in 1960, when just the synagogue was built, the synagogue was closed, so there's anymore.
1960
No,
or 1860?
no, it was closed 100 years later, the building of this synagogue.
Oh, I
because
see.
there we
I see.
have two synagogues, a little one which was
I see.
in Via delle Oche, and where attend service Ashkenazi people when we
Yes.
were children, and here it was just as far.
Because the start of the synagogue, when the ghetto was open, the Jews can live everywhere, and also in the time decided to, for 5 years here was the capital of Italy. In that period, decided to build a synagogue very big. No anymore a synagogue that was hide in the houses, but a synagogue that you can see from also Piazzale Michelangelo, a place where you can see all the city.
Yes.
So a big synagogue with a big dome.
Right.
And also for
A monumental synagogue.
But it's interesting because
it's a
the
synagogue
Mercato-
of emancipation.
the Mercato Nuovo, or the Mercato Vecchio, where that was the Jewish ghetto before 1870. And then in 1870, when they began building the Piazza Repubblica in honor of the unification,
Yes, of Italy.
that was around the same time that this was built, in the 1870s. Is
Yes,
that correct?
yes. That was started to build the synagogue in 1874. Was finished, I think, in 1882.
Yes, yes.
And yes.
So did the Jewish population at that point move from the old Mercato Vecchio to
Yes, but
this?
just some year earlier, the Jewish people don't live anymore in the ghetto, because the ghetto was open some years earlier, and they start to live everywhere. But when it was built this synagogue, a great part of the Jewish
Yes.
live in this area.
Okay.
And the synagogue was built in a Moorish style to remember the Jews arrived here from Spain. So they
Yes.
decide this style, and also for to be different from the other part of the city that is more Renaissances.
So let's talk about the Jewish population in Florence over 3 periods. First of all, before World War II, let's say back in the 19th century, did the Florentine population in general always accept the Jews as part of the community of Florence as a whole? Were they always accepted?
Yes,
Or was
they stay enough well here in the city. Was inside the society of the city.
teachers,
Yeah.
Doctors,
Yes.
they stay well, and they don't can imagine what can happen.
Yes.
And my grandfather was a professor in university, and he was survived because he received false documents, because one day when he was working in the city, a friend of him saw him, but then he told him, "But what are you doing here in Florence? You can't stay here. You can't work. Came with me. I prepared for you false documents. You can't stay here anymore. It's dangerous." But they not realize so well was happening.
Yes. Yes. Now, did Mussolini share Hitler's insanity about, just the extermination of the Jews? Was that something that Mussolini believed in himself, or was he just going along with Hitler?
The racism of Mussolini was born before that of Hitler. He was a racist in Africa, where he went with the war of Ethiopia.
Yes.
The first law of segregation came from Italy, from Mussolini,
I see.
against Africans.
So after the war, after World War II, how much of the Jewish population was there after World War II? After World War
Yes.
II, how much of the Jewish population either came back or came out of hiding?
Yes, of course. After when the war was finished and arrived the Americans, that was the liberation of the city. Also, some Jews was in Partigiani, partisans to fight,
Yes.
and they was very happy, and so they returned back to their home. Of course, there was more than 140 people that was deported, that they doesn't return back anymore. And they start to rebuild, because also the synagogue was during the war. The Nazis came here and used the synagogue as storage, also for the the things that they take out from the house of the Jewish people. And also when they run away, and the same night and the same days, where they put the bomb on the bridge of the city, just to divide the city into parts and not allow to the American to cross the river, they put also some mines inside the synagogue, and the part of the gallery of the women fall down. So we have to restore also the synagogue, because they can't use anymore the synagogue without restoration.
They didn't blow up the entire synagogue,
No,
just part of it?
but the gallery of the women fall down, and you can see that some iron on the roof, because this iron that arrived from to consolidate the structure.
I see, okay. And the population at that point began to rise, I guess, over the years from World War II till now.
No,
it didn't rise?
No, they didn't rise, because a lot of
It began to rise, then it stopped, and now it's decreasing.
It was going up, and then
there was a plateau, and then it was decreasing.
It's decreasing now.
Yeah, it's decreasing now.
So the Jewish population of Florence is decreasing now.
Because they went to abroad, someone to Israel, someone to France, or to the States, and also people who are no more Jews.
The problem of assimilation.
Now, why was there a reason that people were leaving Florence?
Because someone thinks doing aliyah and Islam.
Well, to Israel.
And also for Jews to have a more intensive life, because here we are a little community, so it's very difficult if you want to live here as a Jew. So you can do everything. There's no problem with the city, but the atmosphere. If you want to have to go to work, and so you can have the permission don't go to work, maybe for Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur. But when anybody on the street tell you Mazal Tov, Hag Sameach for a holiday, Jewish holidays, and so if you want to live more, and also for your family, for your child, if you want to be more Jew here is not so possible.
And also because the work is not the same here and abroad. A lot of people my age went to the States or to France because of study.
Yes.
And for work later.
But you remained, so you must.
Yes.
You feel really a strong connection to Firenze. I've been to Firenze. This is my 18th trip to Firenze. I love coming to Florence. I have friends here.
But I lived in Rome, and then
you lived in Rome.
when I was a child, because my father went there for work, and then I married in Milan, and I was in Milan 24 years, and then I came back.
I see.
So I am a Florentine, and my parents were Florentine, but I didn't live all my life here.
I think Florence is the best city in the world. That's my opinion.
Yes,
it's a more beautiful city.
It is a beautiful city, but to live, to have a work,
yes,
it's not so easy.
Of course.
And for example, my sister, when she was 20 years, made Calia, and now she lives in Rehovot, and she has a family there.
I see. Now, why are there armed guards outside? Has there ever been any recent difficulty?
We have a problem, but they're here for the defense. As you go in front of American consulate, in front of American embassy in Rome, you find police because it's to prevent.
A deterrent.
Yes, because
don't get any ideas that you can cause mischief around here.
Because also it's connected to what happened in Israel. So with
I see.
Only in Rome.
This is the president of.
Good morning. Thank you. Welcome.
Renzo Funaro, and he's an architect, and he is the director also of the work of the restoration of the synagogue just now, because not only after the war, but he can tell you better than me, you have to maintain this big monument.
Right.
It's not easy.
So actually the question about the damage that was done, he could really speak on what has been done to restore the synagogue.
Yes, I speak Italian very well. And if Emanuela can translate your asks better. Yes.
Dici cosa c'è bisogno? No, ma
Dai,
perché speak English.
Don't be shy.
I lavori, perché sono importanti i lavori di ristorazione ora? Perché dopo la guerra cosa succede?
But here it was a ceramic building.
Yes, two big problems of this building. The first problem, excuse me for my mistake in English, but
That's okay.
it's terrible in English.
That's
But,
okay. My Italian is terrible.
This building, when beginning to building, have the bigger problem of the foundation. And after, in the Second World War, 1943, the Nazis put the bomb to the column to the left, this side,
Yes.
and also other part. But this broke everything this part. Also the flood in 1966, water.
The big flood.
You can see the water.
Arrive here.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Also
The water arriving.
2 meters
Yeah.
of water after the street. In this street here, 2 meters.
And this is very far from the river.
No, it's not so
Not so
far.
far, but the water arrived very quickly.
And the water arrived running.
All,
And I saw the water going up.
all the center,
Very
all the
Scary,
center
huh?
town of
Yes.
Florence have the water. And the Santa Croce is 6 meters. 6.
Wow.
Here
6
2 meters.
18 feet.
Yes, because the river of Florence, I don't know, is a big river but a small river. And when there rain many, sometime, any 100 years, any 100 years, dal 1400, anyhow, that go in the street. The problems of the synagogue are many, because the first is decoration. Because decoration, this part of decoration, oil, are broke everything. Other problems is the copper, the roof. When beginning the restoration here, 50 years ago, we have the trees and the copper, many trees, and the rain inside.
The bird bring on the roof and start.
Really?
There was a fico, come si dice fico? Remember? Fico, a tree of yes, on the roof.
Yes, this is a big problem. Now, after 50 years of work, it's not finished, but many things we're doing, but to continue the restoration.
It's beautiful.
Yes, it's beautiful, but it's very difficult to maintain. And there's necessary
Also expensive.
any years to continue to restoration and to clean. And because another problem is the roof is in copper, in copper. And this is a big problem is because in Florence, the other building, the church, the Duomo, have the copper red, and the special thing. Argilla, cotto, the red thing for copper. Here's green and it's copper, and this problem is because in Florence, when it's very hot, in winter when it's very cold, this move.
Yes.
It's metal.
It's the metal. This problem
It's in tracks and it's
The other building there, they are the copper, the copy.
the element.
The elements are put in like this, and so if they became larger, they do like this, and they do like this, and they don't do something like that as with metal.
Yes, I see.
When beginning to restoration, the synagogue, the copper of the dome is broke many parts, and we change all. The problem is the color, because when beginning the building in the 8H2, all copper of dome is red. It's red. It's a natural copper. After is green. After brown. After green, and change color.
Oh.
And many parts of the brook are different color. The problem is which color is possible to look for of this copper for change everything. This is a big problem.
Oh, I see.
In Germany, in the north of Germany, it existed the farm of special copper. I go for see the type of color red, and you can look for one type, very many similar at the original green.
See. Huh.
But it's not exactly. And I remember when it's finished everything from the Sovrintendenza, is the state organ for control, called me, but why you change color? Why you change color? Because many think the architect, the historic, the art, and the synagogue Florence change color. Why? But there's another problem.
I like it green. I think it's beautiful.
Yes,
but it's not the exact green.
It's
But
not
when you
exactly-
stand on Piazzale Michelangelo,
Yes,
it
and-
dominates the skyline.
Yeah, and this is the problem. Because the people of Florence, the public opinion, also the church, don't want the strong signal of the Jewish in the landscape of Florence. Because the principal landscape of Florence is red, as the Duomo,
And the cathedral.
as the Duomo, the
Right,
cathedral.
yes, yes.
The signal before is not very strong. It's very, it's very low. Now it's strong. And this is the psychological problems and the landscape of Florence.
When I stand at Piazzale Michelangelo and I look over the landscape of Florence, I'm sorry to the people of Florence, but my eye is always drawn to the synagogue, the green and then I look at the the red dome of the cathedral, but, you know,
Stands out.
that's my feeling.
We like it.
I like the cathedral dome also. I don't want to say any bad things about it. Anyway, why don't we stop here and then maybe you can give us a tour of the synagogue itself.
Yes, you can.
Would you like to stop here and then we could pick it up
Yes.
after? Okay, and there's two more. Here's the next one.
20 people,
Oh, okay.
150 people, and so we use
I missed the beginning of the
downstairs of the synagogue.
Okay.
Another problem is that it's cold here, very cold in the winter time, and we have put just in the center part some heating, and you see that it's different. It's like new,
Yes.
but because the side there is like a heating,
Oh, I see.
just to stay a little better.
Yes.
But it's very difficult because
Sure.
it's so great,
Yes.
and so it's yes,
I could see that. That'll be very cold.
yes, and so it's very cold, and so it's not so comfortable, and also because our services are very long, and so it's a problem. Huh?
So Saturday morning services you're talking about? Saturday morning?
Yes, Saturday morning,
Saturday morning.
of
It
course,
begins at what time?
at 8:45 until 12.
Oh, so well, a little over 3 hours.
Yes, and so also because we have also an old population, and so also for this part of the population to stay here with cold. Yeah. Because of one time, a century ago, the people don't used to have 20 degrees in their home. There was not the heating
So they
like
were used to
now.
the
People
cold.
expect
So,
more now, yes. They expect it to be warmer.
Yes, now have the heating, we have air conditioning in the summer times.
Yes.
One times again, the people are not used. So,
I see, yeah, that's true.
yes,
That's
so
true.
it was
50
different.
years ago, 60 years ago, if it was cold, well, their homes were cold, so
Yes.
it's cold here too.
Yes.
I see. So on a typical Saturday morning, you have how many people?
120.
120. Even though the congregation consists of many,
900.
900 people.
Yes, yes.
So 120 people.
And also, of course, if we have a bar mitzvah in our morning.
Yes, yes, sure, of course.
Yes, yes. Of course. And Jewish people came to the synagogue generally for Saturday morning. On Friday night, we have also a lot of people, but most part of them are tourists. That came here for Friday night service.
That's when Laura and I came here 3 years ago. We were tourists, or we just came Friday evening.
Yes, there are more tourists
Are
than
there
Friday night.
any American Jews who come here regularly, who live here?
Not so much, but there are.
Few.
A few.
Just curious.
Well, it's pretty amazing. It's pretty beautiful. And thank you very
We
much.
can go upstairs.
Oh, sure,
See-
great, wonderful, good.
Different but similar. It's very different of the facilities.
There was at the time there was a competition of projects, but the community decided this kind of project
You mean there was a competition for the dome of the synagogue?
from all the building.
For
the
Yeah, for the entire building?
yes,
Because the most famous competition could have been the one for the dome of the cathedral.
exists many competition. Also, the other competition
The
is
doors of
the,
the baptistry.
the competition is for the place. Because many Jews want the place for the new synagogue near the ghetto, destroyed, near the center town. Other
I
no,
see.
in the new part.
I
This
see.
is the new part of the town.
Right.
This is a new part because in 1850 no exist nothing in this part of the town.
Yes.
This is a kind
But you know,
of
but it's interesting that Florence, of all the cities I've studied in Italy, Florence always has competitions. The competition for the doors of the
For all.
baptistry, the competition for the dome of the cathedral, the competition
For
for
all.
there's always competition. You don't
Yes.
hear about that in Rome and in
and also
Milan.
for France the competition for the president of the state
Right,
of
right.
Italy, which is crazy. Because we have the mayor and
So
one
you- Yes.
is the new president of the Italian state. This is a Cavalier lady. Cavalier David Levy is the president in the 85 of the Jewish Community of Florence. And they, when is dead, gave at the Jewish Community of Florence 1,200,000 Italian lire. In 953 is the same money of Big Gate. It's a very important capital for construction of the new synagogue, the new temple. Because to exist in Florence, there are two synagogues, very old, one Sephardi, one Italian Rite, but are destroyed because when Florence is the capital of Italy state, the municipality destroyed the old center town,
Yes.
in the medieval center, also
Yes.
the ghetto, with two synagogues and the medieval tower. And now exists the Jewish place for prayer. The Jewish community use one small building in Via delle Oche for oratory, for small synagogue, temporary, but beginning to build the new temple because the wall wanted the Jewish community the new temple with a symbol of emancipation, of freedom of the Jewish community in the new Italy unit.
The Republic,
Yes.
the unification
Yes.
of Italy in the 1870s.
Yes, in this museum, because this is the second part of the museum, we have in this room the computer with server, and the student that came here for visit can see in the computer the website of the other Jewish museum in the world, and also Yad Vashem and other Jewish organizations in the world. And this is very important because here coming 30,000, 40,000
That's more than 40,000 tourists a year.
and students.
And a lot of students, also
Italian
students
students.
from the city.
I see.
Please.
Okay. Okay. So that ends the three interviews that we did, and what I now have are some photos that I'd like to show you, and we'll move through this kind of quickly because you saw most of the really good things related to the inside of the synagogue, but here are some. It's just magnificent. The walls are decorated, just stunning, and the floor and everything is just absolutely beautiful. And to have the ability to photograph inside is really quite a privilege. And of course, we thank the people there very much. This is the model of the original synagogue. He said there was a competition. There's always competitions in Florence. All the major structures in Florence, the major buildings, had competitions. The doors of the baptistry, as I mentioned in the video, and also the cathedral, and also for the synagogue itself. So this was the model that was used. And these are just some artifacts that we photographed from the museum during the last part of our visit. These are actually children's clothing from the 19th century, a bonnet, among other things. Of course, you could see the stained glass, in the background was really stunning. Jewish documents. And the Sabbath table set for the Sabbath dinner. And Torah covers, magnificent. More documents. And that's, a close-up of the stained glass. And, of course, the most important thing is that Allen's Italy expresses profound appreciation to Emanuela and Sara and Renzo for their time in granting us these remarkable interviews. And that brings us to the end. The next show, which will be next Friday evening, will center on part 2, which will be the Jewish experience in Italy, focusing on Venice. So I hope you enjoyed the show, and I certainly enjoyed bringing it to you. And buonanotte e buona fortuna.